So I might have spoken a little too soon when it came to my predictions video, predicting Max Verstappen to win the Australian Grand Prix, because boy oh boy, did that ever go so wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I know it's been a few days and the Australian Grand Prix has definitely already come and gone, but here we are to talk about what happened this weekend briefly, mainly just because it has been a few days. I was actually out of town during this weekend up in New York City for a few days to visit some friends up there for an event, and so I actually wasn't able to watch the majority of the weekend until after I got back. But here we are finally getting to it. We're going to briefly go through this weekend with our quick hits, what's next in Formula One, our biggest winners and losers from the weekend, as well as go over our updated predictions standings before we head on out of here in this one. But before we get started, if you aren't already, go ahead and subscribe down below, leave a like if you enjoy this video, and leave a comment down below what you thought of the Australian Grand Prix this year, and did Max Verstappen's retirement change your review of the race at all. But first, let's go ahead, let's jump on into it with our quick hits. We're going to do some very quick hits this week, just because it is a few days late, and I think a lot of what's already been talked about has already been said. So we'll start obviously with the biggest news over the weekend is the DNF of Max Verstappen, ending his, I believe, 43 race streak of finishing Grand Prix, dating back all the way to his last retirement in Australia 2022. And a very much incredible run from Red Bull in that one. The reliability issues and just the consistency of Max has been absolutely unheard of. This one, I think it came very much as a shock, and I think it initially shocked me due to it potentially looking like a engine failure, just because it seems like Red Bull has had the dial tuned perfectly on that engine to get the maximum performance out of it and also maximum reliability. But alas, it was not. It was a brake cooling error, where I guess I don't know exactly what happened. I think I've seen conflicting reports that the caliper was jammed shut, or one thing or another. I don't really know. Either way, we had catastrophic brake failure from Max in his rear right tire, eventually obviously causing him to retire from the race due to it. And we saw a lot of fire, a lot of smoke, and eventually a bit of an exploding wheel cover as he pulled into the pits for the final time in Australia. And it all of a sudden opened up a world of possibility, with Carlos Sainz now leading the race, and the rest is history. Obviously, this was a big moment in Formula One. I think we've all been secretly begging for something like this for quite a while at this point. And we get our second non-Red Bull win in a season in 3 races, both of which were taken by Carlos Sainz last year in Singapore and now here in Australia. So a big moment from this weekend, which leads us into our next point. The Carlos Sainz takes his win. Mentioned already, Carlos drove flawlessly, almost, with only coming off of about 2 weeks since he had his appendix out, when he was suffering with appendicitis before the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix 2 weeks ago. An absolutely unreal performance from Carlos. I definitely didn't expect him to come out and put in this kind of performance. I'm sure a lot of the drivers are going to be kicking themselves when it comes to their qualifying laps in this one, specifically Charles Leclerc, who ended up having to back out of his final qualifying lap and was unable to start on the front row, which I think I saw he was on a streak of like 8 races in a row or something like that going into this one, starting on the front row, and he must be kicking himself for this one because that was a race win for the taking. But hey, Carlos put in the good lap. Carlos drove the race perfectly. He managed it wonderfully, and he comes home with a win. Charles Leclerc does come home P2, so it is a 1-2 for Ferrari. A very welcome sight here in Formula One. I think one of the other combo points we need to talk about is the crash of George Russell on lap 57 of 58 here. Obviously, the accompanying Fernando Alonso 22nd penalty that came along with it. Supposedly, Fernando had a throttle issue. I'm not sure anybody really quite believes that, but Fernando Alonso unsettles George Russell just enough to cause him to, having to respond to an early braking zone from Fernando Alonso. George ends up going into the wall, through the gravel, and ends up back on the track, propped up on his tires on his side, with essentially the belly of his car facing a very dangerous position and a very high speed portion of the track. Extremely dangerous. Thankfully, nothing happened. The marshals and the stewards and the race director responded very quickly. There's a lot of conversation around the use of a VSC versus a red flag, or which level of severity we're looking at. I think the overarching theory is that they went for a VSC just because there was essentially almost less than one lap of racing remaining, and they wanted to just slow everyone down, get everyone across the line, and then go from there. There's a lot of ways you could take that. I'd love to know your comments down below, what you think they should have done. Was the VSC the right call? Should it have been a red flag immediately? I don't know. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Obviously, that is a oversimplification of exactly what happened with George and Fernando, but I think we've exhausted this talking point enough over the last few days online, and we'll end things off with the reason I brought the shirt out again. I did my predictions video in this in an attempt to reverse jinx the universe, and boy oh boy did it work. Thanks to the DNFs of Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, and George Russell, we got a double Haas points finish in Australia. Let's go Haas F1 team, their first double points finish since Austria 2022. Obviously, we're propped up quite a bit by the DNFs of those ahead, but hey, that's Formula One. To finish first or 10th, first, you must finish. 3 drivers failed to do so from one reason or another, and they put themselves in position to take advantage. That is a double points finish for Haas. Absolutely wonderful, and I am taking it all the way to the bank. Moving on quickly to our weekend winners and losers. We will start with our weekend winner, and I don't think we can go anywhere else besides the Spaniard Carlos Sainz, coming off of an appendix surgery to win his first Grand Prix since Singapore last season. The first non-Max Verstappen win in, I believe, 9 races, if I'm remembering that math correctly. What more do we really need to say? Carlos ran a almost perfect weekend, and he comes home to win in Australia. I mean, if that's not biggest winner, I don't know what is. Although I will give a special shout out to our boys here. Double points finish. We need those. But congratulations, Carlos. You are my weekend winner. Quickly moving on to our weekend loser. I went back and forth on this one a lot. I think there's an argument that you can be made for someone like Logan Sargent for Kick F1 team as biggest loser. That said, I think the biggest loser needs to be Mercedes. A double DNF in a weekend where Max has a mechanical failure, retirement from the race, and Sergio Perez apparently also had damage to his floor, causing him to finish much lower down than we realistically should have seen him. An opportunity to claw back some points and continue to do your best to keep up in the Constructors' title. A double DNF is definitely not what you want. Reliability issues for Lewis Hamilton, and just unfortunate dirty air mistake for George Russell. A double DNF is never what you want to see. Yeah, I don't know if there's really much more to say on that. But Mercedes, get your stuff together. Like, please. Or don't, I guess. I don't know. You do what you want. So let's go ahead and look at our predictions results. This was definitely my worst weekend in predictions in a very long time, dating back all the way even to the 2023 season. I ended the weekend with only 1.5 points to my name here, and the 1 came from predicting Max Verstappen pole position, and the half came from predicting Charles Leclerc to finish 3rd on the podium, and so getting a half point for him finishing 2nd. And that's it. That is it. My biggest positive surprise, Daniel Ricciardo, nowhere to be found. My biggest disappointment, Haas, gladly. Let me say this. If that's what it takes to get a Haas double points consistently is for me to lose prediction points and predicting the biggest disappointment every week, I will happily take this responsibility every single time. Qualifying, Max, Charles, George. Max did take pole. Charles did not take 2nd, and George was absolutely nowhere to be found. Mercedes was very much off the pace this weekend. And then obviously my podium of a Max, Sergio, Charles prediction, a very safe prediction so far in the last handful of races, was absolutely disastrous this weekend, with Max DNFing, Sergio having damage and pace issues, and obviously Charles being out of position there. And then finally, my one crazy prediction, I predicted a battle for the lead within the last 5 laps. This was close. I was really on the edge of my seat to see if Charles or Lando would be up there in the last 5 laps. They were not, and then obviously the George Russell crash effectively ended the race a lap and a half early, and so no prediction points for me there. I ended the weekend with a 1.5 points. You can see the more results, the rest of the results, and where we currently stand here. I currently stand now in last with 10.5 points. British TTG in 11.5, and Senel with 11. As always, if you're interested in hopping in on the predictions challenge, you can head to the link in the description. Join the Discord every week, race weekend. I'll make a call for predictions. You'll get your predictions in the video rather, and you'll be added to this a little retroactively. It's still a lot of fun, and you never know what could happen down the stretch. But guys, that is going to wrap it up for me here. What's next? F1 heads to Japan around Suzuka here in 2 weeks from April 5th to 7th. Last year we saw a Max Lando Oscar podium. Obviously, Japan took place much later in the season last year, and so we saw the resurgence of McLaren here. But that begs the question, who will we see on the podium this year? Will we see a Max Verstappen return to form? A Sergio Perez as well? Maybe we see a little bit of a McLaren jumping in towards the front. We saw Lando perform very well around Australia. Can they keep it up around Suzuka? Time will tell. But guys, that's going to wrap it up for me here in this one. This is a really quick one. I know I'm a few days late and I apologize. We'll be back in a week and a half for Japan. I'm very excited. And yeah, guys, I'll see you in the next one.